those
Okay, let's play
psychedelic
some
begin to help
damn
you
shit.
think outside the box. They begin to break down thought
Street
patterns,
whore.
and if you use them efficaciously like I
From
did,
China.
they were extremely helpful in helping
Suck
me begin
my
to
slut.
assess myself and start looking more closely
my
at
motherfucking
what do
dick,
I
bitch.
believe and who really am I and why am I really
Suck
here and
my
asking
dick,
these
bitch.
basic fundamental questions
You
that
suck
these
my
meditative
goddamn
states
dick,
get you
bitch.
into.
You suck
And so
my
by the
goddamn
time
dick.
I contracted cancer, I was already beginning to think,
Stupid,
what
you
is this about
stupid
Christianity?
motherfucker.
Am
I'm
I
fixing
really
the ear, you're
truly
rook.
true?
Like
But I
cutting
still
off
was
your
a
left
Christian.
ear,
Still
slut.
absolutely believed that you had to have Jesus to go to heaven. I still believe in the theology. I just was beginning to kind of question it a little bit for the first time ever, and this was age 37, 38 that I was doing this, so late. And so then I got cancer, and then cancer was like an accelerator, and it just pushed me, forced me into deeper and deeper philosophy and psychology of my life, because as a 40-year-old man with young kids that I'm raising, I'm now feeling very responsible. Like, I have to be healthy. I have to be better. I want to be these kids' dad. I need to be their dad. And so there's this tremendous pressure to heal and tremendous pressure to get better. And so, because cancer is a body, mind, spirit disease, I personally began to look at my physical behavior. What am I eating? What am I exposed to? What are these toxins that are around me? And then the mind aspect. What am I believing? Where am I putting my energy and my thoughts?
Man, look
What's
at this
the psychology
motherfucking
of
shit.
what I'm doing? Why am I sick? What did my thoughts have to do with my getting sick? Because, thinking and getting sick is, synonymous. And then the spiritual side. What do I believe? Who is God? What is God? What is there a God? Like, all of these questions, and this is sad, but these were the first time I was juggling these questions as a 40-year-old man. I mean, that's sad, but it's true. That's the way it was for me. And then the cancer was just this constant impetus to keep going. You can't quit.
Damn it.
You have to get better. There's no stopping. It wasn't like being on a diet or something where it's like, okay, I'm not going to think about my diet today. You think about cancer and healing 24/7. It becomes everything in your world to get better, because you want to be better, because you love others around you and you love yourself. You want to be healthy. And so it was an amazing teacher for me. Cancer, it was a gift. And I know a lot of people hate cancer, and I'm not objecting that. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm just saying, for me personally, I really took it on as a friend and a teacher.
Goddamn
and I took it on as a way of learning and thinking outside of the ways I always thought. And having death at my door every day, and not knowing if I was going to wake up with, an even further worse cancer in my lungs, cancer in my brain, cancer in my lymphatics, because it was going to ruin in my body eventually if I didn't get better from it. And so this held me accountable every day, holding me accountable for every thought, holding me accountable for every action, everything I'm eating. And it's really an initiation is what it was. An initiation into deeper thinking, deeper philosophy, and getting outside of this tiny little golf ball-sized world I had lived in my entire life. And so it really builds self-responsibility and self-accountability is what the cancer did. And like I said, an amazing teacher. And you can approach cancer in that way, and you can accord death and basically say to yourself, I'm okay if I die. I'm okay if that happens. But at the same time, I want to live, and I want to pursue health. When you can begin to be in both spaces and not have any anxiety with either, you're getting to the point. And that's the point in life where you can live without fear, without anxiety, because no extreme takes you, and you begin to walk that middle ground between the yin-yang, that gray line that isn't caught up in all the black and isn't caught up in all the white, but it's just going with it at the center of the wheel where there is no movement. And you can stay in that center by being accorded with death. And so that's really what happened when I got sick and when I got cancer, and pulled me out of that tiny little world that I had been caught up in. Joseph Campbell was a very key figure in my life. Joseph Campbell, his Mythos series on DVD was life-changing for me. And I watched that while I had cancer, and it was this beautiful approach to life that Joe has, which is pure philosophy, pure psychology, no religion, just this pure, pay attention to what you're thinking, what you're seeing, what you're observing, look more deeply into the world. There's more to it than the surface layer but without getting caught up in all this God idea, but just truly in this fully experiencing idea and giving myself completely to life and all the risks that it holds, and doing that boundlessly without any anxiety. And that's to truly live joyful. And that's really what Joe helped me understand as I was, as you said earlier, finding this other way of going about understanding the world and the bigger picture without a religion to center upon, but rather just centering upon my own heart and my own understanding. And that really was the transformation for me.
What was the conversation like with your dad once he heard about the cancer diagnosis? And is it correct to say that you went more of an alternative medicine route versus the traditional medicine? And could you just elaborate? I think I heard that was the discussions of how you treated it was a big diverting point. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. I used naturopathy, yoga, acupuncture. These were some of the critical elements. Coffee enemas and doing the Gerson method and theory. That's how I treated the reason why I got the cancer. To me, it didn't make any sense to just go and have the tumor removed and never address why I grew the tumor. So yeah, absolutely, if you need to have the tumor removed or whatever, fine. But you need to resolve why you grew that tumor, because the tumor is the flowering of cancer. It's not the cancer, it's the flowering of the dysfunction that is going on to cause the tumor. So for me, this was common sense. So if my approach was, I'm going to fight it naturopathically as long as I can, and then if I can't shrink the tumor, drain the tumor, or get rid of it in one way or another, then I'll have it removed. And so for me, I went through that process about 8 months of purifying and clarifying, the body, mind, and spirit, which is the holistic approach. And when I initially started on that, I started early that way. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I already was going down that path. So when I approached my father on this, and I'll never forget, I went to his house with my wife right when I was diagnosed, or 2 days after. And when I told him that I was going to reject all Western medicine, I was going to take the advice of any Western doctor, I was never going to get chemo, and I was never going to do these terrible things that they do to people that have cancer. And so my father, though, he's an obeyer. He does as told. And so when you get sick, you go to a doctor. You don't look at yourself and figure out how you get better. You find out from the doctor how to get better. And that's how my father was. And so when I said I'm going to reject the doctor, my father had no time for that. Like, that is not what you do. You obey your authorities. And so there began a seed between us of very, very strong disagreement in my approach. He obviously loved me. He obviously wasn't chastising me or any of that, but he made it very clear, I do not agree with what you're doing, and I really stand against what you're doing, but I love you as my son, and I totally support you, and all those things. And he did support me, and they were right there for me. They helped me financially, the whole thing, because it's expensive to fight with naturopathy. So absolutely was there, but at the philosophical, psychological level, my father was completely against it. And that, I guess, in many ways helped me break away. It made it easier to start thinking for myself and begin to see my dad as a peer rather than as, dad, but just as a peer, a friend, a person, that I interact with, but not as this authoritative figure that I obey. And it began to help me see my father more like that, and I think that's healthy. I think we need to see our parents more as peer-to-peer than as our authority. You're not going to be asking your parents as a 30-year-old if you should buy a car or not. That's your decision. And so in the same way with your life. And so this helped our relationship in that sense, but at the same time, it was also costly. My father and I had always related through Jesus and Christianity, and leaving that began to form, a stigma between us, a barrier between us, and that will never go away. I mean, that's just the way that it is, and my father disagrees with me, obviously.
What was like the first conversation there where you actually kind of spilled the beans and kind of said, I don't think the Bible's divine, or I question the whole worldview? What was that first conversation like, and how did those evolve?
Yeah, okay, so the first time my father found out that I was leaving Christianity was when I was actually still working at the church. I had just healed from cancer. I had been diagnosed cancer-free, and it was about 2 or 3 weeks after. And obviously, he has a large radio ministry that he's a part of, and he had been telling people about it. So he had been talking about it on. So there were millions of people around the world that knew I had cancer. And so when I was healed of it, he came to my office at work one afternoon because he had asked me to write a letter telling my cancer story, and he wanted to be able to present this letter to everyone who had been writing them and asking them about my journey. And so I had finished the letter, and I had given him the letter. And so he came to my office on a Saturday afternoon when I was working, and I was prepping for the show on Sunday. And he came to my office and he said, "Chuck, I want to talk to you." I was like, okay. And so we sat down, and he had the letter in his hand.
God fucking damn it.
And he looked at me, and I'm sitting at my desk, and he's across from me in a chair. And he says, "You know, Chuck, I just read your letter," and he holds it up, and he said, "You know, it's a great letter. I really appreciate you writing it, and it really means a lot that you would do this for us. We really appreciate it, but I have one question that's a really big concern." I said, "Okay." And he said, "Chuck, in this entire letter, you never one time, not only you don't mention Jesus, but you don't even talk about how Jesus helped you get better from cancer." And I paused and I looked right at my father and I said to him, "Well, Dad, that's because Jesus had nothing to do with my healing from cancer." And my father looked at me like I was a ghost. He had this incredulous look of, I don't even know what I just heard. He couldn't even comprehend it. And he looked at me in the way that my father does, and he just goes, "What?" And I said, "Dad, I was the one doing coffee enemas. I was the one doing yoga. I was the one who went to the acupuncturist. I was the one who changed all my eating habits. I was the one who lost 50 pounds that I didn't need to lose. I was the one who did the necessary physical work to heal from cancer. And Dad, that has nothing to do with Jesus. That is my physical participation and risking myself in life. That's a personal endeavor."
You stupid
and here we're getting
motherfucker.
right into psychology. And my dad was like, "Chuck, how can you be saying this?" And the conversation basically just went downward, just one step after another, as I got fully more into perspective and psychology, and he got more into theology and the truth. And so he and it began this barrage of back and forth, and it got heated, and it wasn't nice. And it really was the beginning of basically the end. And he left upset, and I was still in my office just kind of like, what now? And, I was at a job where you literally have to sign a form that says, "I believe in Jesus, I'm going to promote Jesus, I'm not going to talk derogatory about Jesus, I'm going to follow the laws of Jesus, and I will stay in relationship." This is, you sign your name to a document like this to work there. And I'm sitting there in this epiphany of realizing I'm pushing myself out of this. Like, this is actually happening because I refuse to bow. I refuse to just obey. I refuse to do as I'm told. I'm going to stay true to my heart and where my heart is leading me. And that really was the beginning of the end. It wasn't too much longer before my wife and I began to look for places outside of Texas, leaving my job, and really having no idea what I was going to do. But I knew I was going to follow my heart, that no matter what, I'm going to follow my heart. And if it cost me financial ruin, if it costs me friendships, if it costs me relationship with my family, I will do that because I'm going to follow my heart, and I'm not going to deny that. And so it took that to get there.
Can I ask, what was it like when you actually got from the conversations of who healed your cancer, which is a pretty big stepping stone into a lot of other topics, I'm sure, but like, what was it like when it finally got to the point of, I'm just not a Christian? Like, when did that occur? Did he try to pull you back? And what have those conversations been like? Because it's one thing to say we're seeing this passage differently, or we're interpreting or applying theology differently. It's another thing to say your worldview is completely mythology based, and Jesus isn't even real, and Yahweh's not real. He's never been real. You've been praying to the wall. and you're a cult leader in a mythology-based worldview group. It's like it gets intense when you get to that bigger level of saying we're not talking about cancer anymore. We're talking about the Bible and Jesus and Christianity. What was that like?
For me, it was pure heart driven, pure heart base. I mean, I was never taken with theology. I was never bought in. I never wanted to be a pastor. I never wanted to be a preacher. I never wanted to. I'm not that kind of person. I don't test well. I'm not good with those kind of things you need to be good at in order to be a theologian. And so it wasn't attractive to me. What was attractive to me was that Christianity offered answers, quote unquote. And you could ask the question, why am I here? And just read this verse, and you got your answer. And this whole self-analysis and self-responsibility, it's just not something that enters the Christian's head. They turn all responsibility to Jesus. They turn their responsibility for everything that they do, misbehavior in life. They just ask for forgiveness and Jesus, please help me to behave better in the future. And please help me not to do that again. Please help me. You never take self-responsibility. It is always reaching out towards its external idea. And so that was never really an issue for me. It was more like, where's my heart in this? And where's my heart leading me? And since all I knew was Christianity, I just molded my heart into that form. So I accepted the fact that I'm a sinner, I accepted the fact that I'm fallen, and then I have this beautiful love relationship with Jesus because Jesus forgives me for my sin. And so you just kind of wallow in that, and that becomes enough. And it becomes enough in the sense that you never do the self-responsibility thing like you've been talking about, Tim, and it's been undergirding everything you've been saying. And that is, where is the self-responsibility here in actually looking at what you're doing and what you're promoting and what you're saying to these people that is not healthy and it's not a good idea? I mean, you never come to that place, Tim. You never come to that place because you think, I've got the answer. I've got the solution. I'm right. Everyone else is wrong. This is how you do it. This is the way. Why are you rejecting this? It's so easy. It's a gift. All you have to do is accept it and you're good. And this kind of dumbed down approach to life, non-philosophical, non-psychological approach to life, that allows you, that gives license for you to behave and act and think in such an irresponsible way. Yeah. And so my father would never, Tim, he would never see himself as irresponsible. He would never see himself as a part of a cult. Ever. He would never enter his mind. Ever, Tim. It wouldn't matter what you showed him. It's just like that verse that in the Bible where it says, even if the rocks scream out at the lost person, they won't hear it. And that's exactly the way the Christian sees it. They see themselves as found. And so even if the rocks cry out to them of truth, look, you need to understand the Bible is an assembly line, man. It's just a concoction of all kinds of history thrown into it. And it's so obvious. And the Christian will never get to the place where they will self-analyze like that because, like you said, Tim, as soon as that foundation starts breaking away and they start realizing what they actually are standing on, that is scary as F. Scary as F. And as soon as they find themselves in that place, they run from it. Because now they're going to have to start answering the hard questions they don't want to, and they can't do that. They've always had the answer. So, sorry, I hope that answered the question.
No, that's great. I know we're at time. I wanted to ask you just one quick last question, if I could, and then if you want to add another comment after that to kind of wrap this up. But just if I could, this has been on my mind, so I want to make sure I kind of slip it in here at the end. You're at the spot where you are an apostate and a heretic to your dad. You are, as we started with, you are bound now for hell because you are not a believer. And we know once you've left the one sacrifice, once you've left the knowledge of the truth, there's no more sacrifice for sins. And you have turned away from the one true Savior, which means you're now still condemned for your sins. And therefore you are on the way to hell, as am I. One of the things that comes into this equation is that the Christians who believe they're going to go to heaven believe that when they get there, they're going to be glorified, which means they're going to agree with God and everything and be like Him. When you see Jesus face to face, you will rejoice, but you'll also be like Him. You'll be transformed. You'll be glorified. And you will see the white hot holiness of God for what it is, the wonderfulness that it is, and his hatred of sin and how much it deserved punishment as a good thing, you will rejoice that he punishes evildoers. And so technically, Christians who go to heaven are going to have to agree with God that when he sends people or lets people go to hell that he created, when he sends people there, they send themselves there, if they want to phrase that and do mental gymnastics. When they get there, the Christians in heaven are going to be aware of it probably in some way, but to whatever extent they are aware of it, they're going to have to say, God, I rejoice that you are punishing sin, and you're doing it the way you're doing it, and it does deserve conscious torment, eternal conscious torment. Therefore, your Father is going to have to dance before Jesus in heaven with a smile on his face, knowing you're burning forever, and that will never change. Have you addressed that topic with him, or if not, what would he say to that, do you think? And do you think there's any sense of like, I am truly thinking and believing monstrous things? Like I say a lot on my channel, if you believe monstrous thoughts long enough, it turns you into a monster.
God,
if he were to say, I would dance with joy before my Lord and Savior while my son is burning, and I will never, ever be changing that mindset. My son deserves the punishment he rightly is getting because he is an apostate and heretic. He rejected his Savior. That he has turned himself into a monster who will basically, Yahweh at that point is a psychopath for creating hell, not giving you a second chance, for doing the whole 9 yards. And your dad has to say to the psychopath, you are actually, you the abuser of all time. You are the definition of love. And I love you as you torture my son. How would he respond to that?
I don't know, Tim, if my father can get into that space. I think, well, first of all, he probably thinks, this is probably where he's concluded, and I know this is where my mother has landed. But I really believe they think in the terms that, I don't remember what the verse is, but it's this verse that once you've committed, once you've said the prayer and asked for forgiveness, even if you become an apostate, even if you reject and denounce Jesus, it doesn't matter. You already went through the process. You've already been baptized, or, the blood of Jesus already been put on you. You can't remove that, and so you'll be forgiven. God, when you get to heaven, even though you totally rejected God or renounced God, you still said the prayer as a 4-year-old, and that was the e-ticket. I know that's where my mother is. I don't know where my dad is exactly, but I know my mother, in order to live with herself, that's where she's landed, in just not believing that I'm going to go to hell. My father, he probably just simply doesn't go into that mind state. In the same way that he doesn't go into the philosophical aspect or psychological, he just won't go into those final thought, like what you just perfectly described it, Tim.
Yes.
Because that theologically is that's exactly what's going to happen in his theology. So you're exactly right. I'm just saying that I don't believe my father can actually bring himself
I just shit in my pants.
facing that, to actually looking at it that hardcore and thinking that. I think he will probably dismiss it. I think he'll probably just say, well, Chuck served in the ministry. He was a Christian for 40 years. I mean,
many were saying to me in that day, Lord, Lord.
Lord knows what happened to him. It's too bad, but he'll go to heaven. The bigger question, though, or I think another good question is, what about the stranger? The stranger. We're to love everyone. Everyone is of value. I mean, if you look at Christianity and the way Jesus taught, I mean, every person is of value. Every person can be saved and all this. Nobody is less than kind of an idea. So, that person is just as valuable as me. That's what I'm establishing here. The stranger is just as valuable as me as a person. Well, then why isn't an issue there? And I just simply think, and this is the way that most of them think, is it's just dismissal. It's just denying that reality, acting like that's actually not going to happen, and just living in this blissful emptiness of not critically thinking it through, and just getting this imaginative idea in your head that somehow it's just going to work out. It's just, they're going to be forgiven. Somehow it's just going to work out, and they actually will never face hell. And I really think that's how they conclude it, because, Tim, I mean, you laid it out. That's the way that it is. So you can't, from a theological standpoint, argue the point you just made, because then you're a sadist. Because that's what a sadist thinks, and Yahweh is a sadist. So, of course, in order to think like Yahweh, you have to become a sadist, and I just don't think the Christian can bring themselves to that
God
place.
damn it.
Because they're living in such, I mean, imagine, Tim, if your entire worldview and relationship to everything comes through your imagination, you can bend it any way you want. You can be as idealistic as you wish to be, because the world is just going to form into the way that your imagination cognizes. So you don't have to be held accountable. It's in your imagination. And this is how it potentiates over thousands of years. And this is why the religion is still here. Because it's so easy to manipulate in your mind. It's imaginatory based. You really don't have to have all the facts. Just believe right in your good brother, and you never really have to pursue, like you would in Buddhism or atheism or these disciplines where you really have to do some pursuit here, and you need to be really chasing knowledge and so forth, which is all healthy. You're not doing that in Christianity. You're memorizing verses. You're learning the edicts, and you're learning how to speak the answers, so that if anyone comes to you, you can just parrot that answer out. And so, yeah, there's not a whole lot of critical thinking going on there, Tim, so I'm not sure my father has ever come to the place where he ever actually has to face that question, to be truthful with you. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I totally get it. It's amazing. Just amazing my job that Christianity does to you. But I feel like I've got 100 other questions for you, but I know we're going to wrap up here, but could you just maybe give us a quick final word for anyone?
Man, this is getting boring as shit.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. You're exactly right, Ashton. Yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right.
God damn it.
What's my opinion of the Joe Rogan podcast? Love your show. Would love to hear your. You know, I have mixed feelings about Joe. I think some of the stuff that Joe does is great. I think some of the stuff that Joe does is harmful. I think he's like anybody. I don't put Joe in any kind of special case. I wouldn't mind being on the show. He's got great exposure. He reaches a lot of people, and each creature needs to reach more people. So it's not that I want to be on the show for me. I would want to be on the show to expose nature creatures, to bring folks from his family to his podcast to ours, and I want our family to grow.
God damn it!
This is a very helpful group of people that we have assimilated here. And we could have great influence on a lot of folks in a very positive way. That's what I think. I'm going to go to the bottom now. I'm just done with the bottom. Joe should be. I'm glad you think so, Ashton. Joe Rogan is limited hand. Yeah, there's some limitations there. And I don't like everything that he says. It's all good. Yeah, penis envy was one of the mushrooms that got me out. I grew it myself. And I took, I think it was like 40 wet grams one day. And that's when I had a voice in my head when I was tripping. And the voice asked, I kid you not, this happened on penis.
God damn it.
It was one of the first times I had ever asked this when I was still a Christian. It said to me, hey Chuck, what if sin doesn't exist? And what if you're not a sinner? I swear to God. It was one of the first times I had ever had a voice in my head, because all growing up in Christianity, I imagined the voice in my head. It wasn't an actual voice in my head. But this one was a real voice. And it said to me that. And I remember sitting there thinking, well, without sin and without being a sinner, well, then that's all. I mean, that's the impetus to becoming a Christian. That's the initiation. That's what initiates you to be like, oh, I need Jesus. I'm a sinner. There is sin. I'm surrounded by sinners. It's that initiating fear, lack, that drives the individual to go towards, I'm going to go get this Savior. I'm going to go be a part of this that's going to save me. And it was the mushroom that said to me, Chuck, think about it this way. And that really was one of the major moments when I began to be like, okay, discombobulates the entire thing. I gotta get going now. This calls that. Chuck, I will accept the number 22 with humble gratitude. That's right, it is you, Fortune! It is. I've said exactly. I know that you're on. I gave you the number, Fortune. I gave you the number because you've taken on the challenge, and that is a life-saving move. You've taken it.
what would you say to them that just to say it's going to get better?
Yeah, I would say the more...
Let's pray. Father, first I want to give you thanks for this day. Lord, for this ability to study your word. Lord, I thank you that how you have blessed Brother Mike with the skills of a teacher.
And then you keep shitting
Not
in
just
my
a teacher,
pants.
Lord, but a gracious teacher who you have gifted to rightly divide your word. And so, Lord, thank you for his heart.
North Korea is the only country on Earth that managed to make the entire world laugh and cringe at the exact same time. And today we're going through 100 laws that prove exactly why. We're talking executions for bad posture, prison sentences for shiny dresses, and a government that once told its citizens the official COVID cure was boiled tree bark. It's funny, genuinely funny, until you remember that 26 million real people had absolutely no choice but to live under every single one of these rules. So laugh, but maybe keep a hand on your heart too. Number 1. So in 2015, North Korea's defense minister, Hyun Young-kol, reportedly got executed for falling asleep during a military rally. The man literally just nodded off, something literally every human being has done, and paid with his life. Most of us get a nudge or a cold stare in boring meetings. This guy got a firing squad. Kim Jong-un really said sleep on company time, sleep forever. Number 2, North Korea has 28 government-approved hairstyles, 18 for women, 10 for men, and every other style is strictly banned. Now here's the fun part. Kim Jong-un's own famous haircut is not on the list because copying it is absolutely forbidden. So he's sitting there with the one haircut nobody's allowed to have. Like a man guarding a sandwich he'll never let you eat. Pure power move, honestly. Number 3. You know how school fees cover things like books, tuition, basic supplies? Well, not in North Korea. Parents there are required to buy their children's school desks and chairs out of their own pockets because the government doesn't cover furniture. So you're sending your kid to school and paying rent for the seat they sit in. Free education. Just bring your own classroom. Number 4. Basketball in North Korea has its own special rules, and they are something else. A slam dunk is worth 3 points, not 2. Miss a free throw and your team actually loses a point. And if you're losing by 20 in the final quarter, you can apparently win without scoring a single basket. Kim Jong-il, who loved the Chicago Bulls, by the way, that very American team, just decided the whole world was playing basketball wrong. Nobody disagreed. Funny how that works. Number 5. On July 8th, every single year, smiling is literally banned across the entire country. That's the death anniversary of Kim Il-sung, their founding leader. Entire country. That's the death anniversary of Kim Il-sung, their founding leader. And on that day, citizens cannot smile, laugh, talk loudly, drink, or celebrate anything. Oh, and if your birthday falls on July 8th, absolutely too bad. You just sit there quietly, not smiling, pretending you're fine. North Korea invented the world's worst birthday policy and didn't even apologize. Number 6. When Kim Jong-il died in 2011, the government didn't just ask people to grieve. They actually sent citizens to labor camps for not grieving hard enough, not crying enough, not looking sad enough, just not performing sadness at the correct government-approved intensity. Imagine being arrested because your face wasn't upset enough. These people had to cry on command or go to prison. Method acting, but make it mandatory and terrifying. Number 7. In 2021, North Korea banned laughing, shopping, and drinking for 11 straight days to mourn the 10th anniversary of Kim Jong-il's death. 11 days. No laughing. No shopping. No fun of any kind. If you so much as cracked a smile, you could be arrested. Other countries light a candle. North Korea cancels joy for a week and a half. And if someone you love happened to die during those 11 days, you weren't allowed to be seen grieving for them either. And you couldn't hold a funeral until the official mourning period ended. Your personal loss had to wait behind the state's loss, because even death has a hierarchy in North Korea. Number 8. An American tourist named Jeffrey Fowl visited North Korea in 2014 and made the mistake of leaving his Bible in a restaurant bathroom. He got arrested and held for 5 months just for leaving a book in a toilet. In another case, an entire family, including their 2-year-old daughter, were sentenced to life imprisonment for simply owning a Bible. A toddler. Life sentence. For a book, North Korea looked at a baby and said, "Threat to the state." Number 9. Women in North Korea were banned from riding bicycles from 1995 onwards. The official reason? Their presence on a bike was considered too suggestive. Yes. A woman's Their presence on a bike was considered too suggestive. Yes. A woman cycling to work, clearly the greatest threat to national stability. The ban got briefly lifted in 2012 and then quietly came back. Men cycle freely. Women apparently needed permission from the government just to sit on a bicycle seat. Revolutionary thinking, just not the good kind. Number 10. If you commit a crime in North Korea, your punishment doesn't stop with you. It extends to your children and your grandchildren too. 3 generations of your family get sent to labor camps for something you did. So a grandfather steals food and 20 years later his grandkids are still paying for it in a prison camp. The crime is yours. The sentence belongs to everybody. North Korea really said, why punish one person when you can punish a whole family tree? Number 11. In 2011, everyone in North Korea who shared the name Jong-un was legally forced to change their name because Kim Jong-un had just taken power and apparently couldn't tolerate citizens walking around with his name. So thousands of regular people woke up one day and were told, sorry, that's his name now. Go pick another one. Imagine being forced to change your own name because a dictator thought it was too similar to his. Peak ego, honestly. Number 12. In North Korea, when a fire breaks out in your home, you are legally required to save the government-issued portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il before saving your own belongings, or yourself. In 2020, a mother of 2 actually faced jail time after rescuing her children from a fire and leaving the portraits behind. She saved her kids. She still got punished. Because in North Korea, 2 framed pictures apparently outranks 2 human lives. Number 13. Making an international phone call in North Korea can get you executed. In 2007, a factory boss was shot in front of 150,000 people for making unauthorized international calls. In 2014, another man was executed just for contacting family members who had defected. You can own a phone. You just cannot use it to call anyone outside the country. Unless you enjoy public executions and want to be the main character. Strictly 1-star experience. Number 14, since 2020, jeans are completely banned in North Korea as part of Kim Jong-un's official crackdown on Western influences. Not just specific styles, all jeans, every kind banned. Women caught wearing trousers can be stopped by youth league members and forced to write a formal written confession for the crime of wearing pants. Imagine writing a confession letter about your outfit. Dear Supreme Leader, I wore denim. I am deeply sorry. Number 15. In North Korea, ordinary citizens cannot just decide to move to the capital city, Pyongyang. You need direct government permission and you must prove you're elite, loyal, and useful enough to live there. Roadblocks check everyone coming in and out. It's basically the world's most exclusive neighborhood, except nobody actually wants in. They just get assigned. You don't choose Pyongyang. Pyongyang chooses you, and only if Kim Jong-un thinks you're worthy enough. That was number 15. We've got 85 more. Subscribe so Kim Jong-un doesn't have to personally assign you a reminder. Number 16. In North Korea, if you're lucky enough to have triplets, congratulations. The government immediately takes them away from you. Apparently, triplets are considered a national good luck symbol, so the state swoops in, raises them in a government nursery until age 4, and hands the parents a gold ring or a silver knife as a thank you. Oh, how generous! They took your 3 babies and gave you cutlery in return. Number 17. When COVID hit the world in 2020, most countries pushed vaccines and medicine. Kim Jong-un pushed Willibar tea. That's right, his official cure for a global pandemic was essentially boiling tree bark and drinking it. Defectors later confirmed that starvation actually killed more people than the virus itself. while the government was busy telling citizens they were being well taken care of. Nothing says great leadership like prescribing bark soup during a pandemic. Number 18, in 2024, North Korea officially banned sunglasses. Just sunglasses. The humble pair of shades that protects your eyes from the sun, the thing every human being on Earth wears casually. Banned. The regime decided they were too Western, too individual, too much of a personal statement. So now North Koreans squint dramatically in broad daylight, fully loyal to the state, slowly damaging their eyes, all for the supreme leader's comfort. Very normal country behavior. Number 19, North Korea actually banned its own blockbuster movie. Kim Jong-un personally directed a big propaganda film called 72 Hours about the North Korean army capturing Seoul in 3 days. It was a huge deal, until 5 months after release, when it was suddenly, silently banned with zero explanation. In August 2024, 4 university students got expelled just for watching it illegally. A government film banned by the same government, and people still got punished for watching it. Peak North Korea. Number 20, Mima. So you know how jobs work everywhere else. You apply, you interview, you get hired. Not in North Korea. The government assigns every citizen their job for life based on what the state needs, and you basically have zero say in it. No quitting, no switching careers, no following your passion. You wake up one day and the government has decided you're a coal miner now.
God damn it.
Thanks for coming to your career orientation. It was never optional.
Fucking
Number
damn it.
21. In North Korea, every household is legally required to display government-issued portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il on their walls. And these portraits must be kept spotlessly clean. Government inspectors literally visit homes to check. If your portrait has a scratch, a smudge, or even a little dust on it, you can face serious punishment. Citizens are essentially required to maintain a shrine to their leaders inside their own homes, like mandatory interior decorating with very high stakes. Number 22. When visiting North Korea as a tourist, customs officers go through your entire music library before letting you in. Every song, every playlist, checked. Anything Western gets deleted on the spot or the device gets confiscated. Then on the way out, they go through everything again. So you enter with no music and leave with less stuff. North Korea managed to make airport security feel like a cultural genocide in under an hour. Truly a 5-star welcome experience. Number 23. In North Korea, radios and television sold to citizens come factory preset to government channels only, and they are literally soldered shut so nobody can retune them. You cannot change the channel. You cannot receive anything outside state broadcasts. Imagine owning a TV but only being able to watch one channel forever. And that channel is just Kim Jong-un looking important 24 hours a day. That's not entertainment. That's a punishment disguised as a home appliance. Number 24. South Korea's famous choco pie snack became hugely popular with North Korean factory workers who received them as bonuses. Kim Jong-un's response? He officially banned choco peas as dangerous capitalist contraband. So South Koreans and defectors responded by stuffing thousands of choco peas into giant balloons and launching them across the border into North Korea. The regime banned a chocolate snack and accidentally started a snack-based balloon protest. This is genuinely one of the most unhinged diplomatic incidents in history. Number 25. North Korea has a whole intranet, their own private version of the internet, that only connects to government-approved websites inside the country, with absolutely no link to the real internet. Most citizens can't access even that. State officials get slightly more access, but Google, YouTube, Facebook, totally non-existent to them. Billions of people browse the internet freely every day, and North Koreans are sitting there on a network that makes early 2000s dial-up look like a luxury experience. Number 26. In 2024, North Korea banned the rooster hairstyle, a specific style where hair is swept up at the front, calling it anti-socialist and an embarrassment to the image of the state. Violators were forced to shave their heads completely. So you showed up with a slightly dramatic fringe and left completely bald. Hair dye, perms, and any style deemed even vaguely Western are also banned for women. North Korea is basically running a country like a very strict, very angry barber. Number 27. Watching South Korean
damn it,
dramas
God
or
damn
K-pop
it.
in North Korea can now get you executed. Not jailed, executed. In July 2024, two people were sentenced to death specifically for distributing South Korean movies and songs. The regime called it accepting the ideology of a hostile country. So while teenagers worldwide are casually streaming K-dramas on their phones, North Koreans are risking their lives for the same content. BTS could genuinely get someone killed in North Korea just by existing. Number 28. North Korea requires all men to serve 10 years in the military and all women 7 years. Mandatory, no exceptions, no opt-outs. That's not a typo. 10 full years of compulsory military service, the longest conscription period of any country on
God
Earth.
fucking damn it.
Finish school, and before you figured out what you want to do with your life, the government has already answered that question for the next decade. Spoiler, it involves a uniform and zero personal freedom. Number 29. Citizens using government propaganda newspapers as scrap paper, just wrapping something in it or using it casually, have been arrested and sent to labor camps. In 2023, multiple people were detained for this exact reason. The newspapers carry images and names of the Kim family, so using them as everyday waste paper is considered deeply disrespectful to the leadership. In North Korea, even the trash you wrap your lunch in can get you imprisoned. That's a lot of pressure on a sandwich. Number 30. In 2024, North Korea also banned Chinese movies and dramas, including content from Hong Kong, reportedly because of souring relations with China, their closest ally. Some Indian and Russian content also made the ban list. So at this point, North Korea has banned American, South Korean, Western, Chinese, Hong Kong, Indian, and Russian. They've essentially banned the entire world's entertainment and left citizens with nothing but state propaganda. Incredible commitment to being the most boring country alive. Number 31. Kim Jong-un once visited a turtle farm near Pyongyang, built by his own father, Kim Jong-il, and found that many turtles had died because the tanks weren't properly supplied with food and water. The farm manager tried explaining it was an electricity shortage. Kim Jong-un didn't care and had him shot dead on the spot. So a man lost his life because some turtles were thirsty. North Korea remains the only country where turtle farming is genuinely a life-or-death career choice. Number 32. In North Korea, owning a microwave is illegal. Not using it wrong, not owning a dangerous one, just owning any microwave at all. On top of that, the entire country faces power cuts every single night. And just to use electricity at all, citizens need monthly government permission. So you're sitting in the dark asking the government's permission to turn a light on, and somewhere a microwave you're not allowed to own is just sitting there being contraband. Completely normal living conditions. Number 33. Two female farm workers in South Hwanghae province were publicly executed in June 2023 for one specific crime. They broke the channel lock on their television and secretly watched South Korean programs. Not distributed them, not showed anyone else. Just watched TV alone at home. They were arrested in December 2022, interrogated for 6 straight months, and then publicly executed. 6 months of investigation for a TV channel. The punishment was designed for war criminals and handed to someone holding a remote. Number 34. In North Korea, women are not allowed to drive. At all. Only male government officials get driving permission, and even then, only about 1 in every 100 people owns a car to begin with. So the roads are basically empty. Women can't use them anyway, and the government is still out here protecting everyone from the terrifying danger of a woman behind a wheel. Oh, the freedom of an open road. Just not for half the population, and honestly barely for the other half either. Number 35. Squid Game. The South Korean series that broke Netflix records worldwide got a man executed in North Korea in 2021 for distributing USB copies of it. A teenager who watched it got sentenced to life in prison, and fellow students who also watched it received 5 years of hard labor. The show is literally about people risking their lives in a desperate survival game, and watching it in North Korea turned into exactly that. Life imitating art at its most darkly ironic. At this point, Kim Jong-un is just writing Squid Game Season 3 for free. Like the video and subscribe if you're sticking around for more. Number 36. North Korea holds national elections every 5 years, and every single citizen above age 17 is legally required to vote. Sounds democratic, right? Well, here's the thing. There is only one candidate on the ballot. 1. You show up, you vote for Kim Jong-un's party, and you go home. The result is always exactly 100% in favor. If you don't show up to vote for the only option available, that itself is a punishable offense. Democracy! Just without the democracy part. Number 37. When a North Korean woman goes into labor, she is legally required to give birth completely alone. No husband, no family, no support of any kind allowed in the room. After the baby is born, she cannot see her husband or family for a full week. The government frames this as protecting the mother, but defectors describe it as deeply isolating and traumatic, bringing a new life into the world.
Goddamn North Korea.
In a country where the government controls everything, including who holds your hand in the hospital. Number 38. In 2008, South Korea cut off fertilizer supplies to North Korea. Kim Jong-un's solution: he ordered every citizen in the country to donate their own feces to the government for use as agricultural fertilizer. Not a metaphor. Literal human waste, collected from households nationwide and redistributed to farms. Citizens who didn't contribute enough faced punishment. In any other country, this would be the plot of a dark comedy. In North Korea, it was just a Tuesday government directive. Number 39. Every newly married couple in North Korea is legally expected to visit a statue of Kim Il-sung immediately after their wedding ceremony as a sign of loyalty. And if your wedding date happens to fall on Kim Jong-un's or Kim Il-sung's birthday, you simply cannot get married that day. The most important day of your life is scheduled around the birthdays of leaders who may never even know you exist. Nothing says romance like government-mandated monument visits on your wedding day. Number 40. North Korea has casinos, but citizens are strictly banned from entering them. The casinos exist exclusively for foreign visitors. So tourists and diplomats walk past North Korean citizens to gamble freely inside a building those citizens literally cannot legally set foot in their own country. The government built an entire entertainment industry that its own people are forbidden from enjoying. That's not just irony, that's the government inventing a velvet rope and making sure only foreigners get past it. Number 41. In North Korea, suicide is treated as a crime against the state, and if someone takes their own life, their entire family can be punished for it. The logic is that your life belongs to the supreme leader, not to you. So ending it without permission is essentially stealing state property. Families of people who died by suicide have reportedly faced interrogation, public shaming, and in some cases imprisonment. The grief of losing someone isn't enough. The government adds punishment on top of it. Number 42. Citizens in North Korea are legally forbidden from moving residences without direct government permission. You can't just decide to relocate to another city, another neighborhood, or even another house on the same street without filing paperwork and getting state approval. The government assigns where you live based on your job, loyalty level, and perceived usefulness. So you don't choose your home. Your home is chosen for you. And complaining about it is, you guessed it, also a punishable offense. Number 43. North Korea has a songbun system, a political loyalty classification that every single citizen is born into based on their family's history going back 3 generations. Your songbun score determines what job you get, what neighborhood you live in, whether you can attend university, and even what food you're entitled to. You inherit your great-grandparents' political reputation, and it follows you your entire life. Born into the wrong family in North Korea, and no amount of personal loyalty or hard work changes a thing. Number 44. Foreigners visiting North Korea are assigned government minders who accompany them literally everywhere. Every meal, every walk, every bathroom break nearby. Independent movement is completely forbidden. You cannot speak to regular citizens without a minder present, and no citizens are trained to report anything suspicious said to them. So you're technically visiting a country, but experiencing a carefully curated performance of it, surrounded by handlers, while the actual country exists just slightly out of reach the whole time. Number 45, in North Korea, even the act of criticizing the government in a private conversation inside your own home with your own family is a punishable offense. Neighbors are encouraged to report each other, family members report family members, and a whole network of informants operates at street level. Defectors describe never fully trusting anyone because anyone could be reporting you. Imagine living your whole life unable to say what you actually think to literally a single human being. That's not a country. That's a very large prison with better landscaping. Number 46. Every school child in North Korea is legally required to collect scrap metal, rabbit skins, broken rocks, and old paper for the government. And there are actual quotas they must hit. If a child can't collect enough scrap metal, they must pay a cash fine instead. So North Korean kids aren't doing homework after school. They're scavenging junk off the ground to meet state targets. And if they come up short, their family pays the penalty. Childhood. But make it state-sponsored labor. Number 47. Since the 1970s, every North Korean middle and high school student has been legally required to raise 2 rabbits per year and hand them over to the government. Not keep them, not name them, raise them and give them away. The meat mostly goes to the military or gets exported for foreign currency. So North Korean students are essentially running an unpaid rabbit farm for the state every single year, while 44% of the country's population remains undernourished. The rabbits eat. The kids don't. Number 48. In 2015, Kim Jong-un issued an official nationwide order to destroy all cassette tapes and CDs containing banned music. Not confiscate them, not store them somewhere. Destroy them. Citizens had to physically hand over their music collections to be smashed and burned. Imagine being ordered by your government to destroy your own music. The songs weren't even dangerous. They were just not state-approved. North Korea looked at a cassette tape and said, "This is a national security threat." And everyone nodded and started smashing things. Number 49. In 2021, North Korea officially banned citizens from wearing leather trench coats because people were copying Kim Jong-un's signature look. After Kim appeared on state TV wearing one, the coats became wildly popular and faux leather versions flooded every marketplace. The regime's response? Literal fashion police started patrolling streets confiscating coats from sellers and anyone wearing one in public. Citizens protested, saying they bought the coats with their own money. The police told them wearing clothes that looked like the Supreme Leader's was an impure trend to challenge his authority. So Kim Jong-un wore a coat on TV. Everyone liked it. And then he made it illegal for anyone else to wear it. The man treats fashion like classified military technology. Number 50. Citizens in North Korea are legally required to wear lapel pins bearing the faces of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il whenever they are in public. Not occasionally, not for special events, every single day, every time you step outside. Foreign visitors are exempt, but citizens have no choice. If you're caught without your pin, you can be questioned and punished. So every morning, North Koreans wake up and pin 2 dead men's faces to their chest before leaving the house. Just a completely normal daily routine. Number 51. In North Korea, being a scoundrel is an actual criminal offense listed in the Penal Code. And in especially serious cases, being a scoundrel is punishable by death.
I do.
Not murder. Not treason.
I do.
Being a scoundrel. Cornell Law reviewed the actual North Korean criminal code and confirmed this is real. The regime also once executed a man for stealing 6 cows and another for stealing half a sack of rice. North Korea built a legal system where stealing lunch and high treason can carry the same punishment. Perfect justice. Number 52. In 2015, Kim Jong-un decided that North Korea needed its own time zone. So he ordered every clock in the country set back by 30 minutes, creating Pyongyang time. The reasoning? The previous time zone had been imposed by Japanese colonial rulers, and Kim wanted to undo that historical wrong. So for 3 years, North Korea existed in its own little 30-minute time bubble, half an hour behind South Korea and Japan. Then in 2018, during a brief diplomatic thaw, Kim reversed the whole thing and synced the clocks back. An entire country changed its concept of time twice in 3 years, because one man kept changing his mind. North Korea, where even the clock does whatever Kim Jong-un says. Number 53. North Korea sends children on school field trips to watch public executions. Multiple defectors confirmed to the U.S. State Department that attending executions was part of the school experience. Not optional, not accidental, fully organized. Students were brought in groups to witness firing squads as a form of ideological education. Other countries take kids to museums and zoos. North Korea takes them to executions and calls it a lesson. The most dystopian school trip itinerary in the history of human education. Number 54. A couple in their 50s in Pyongyang who had built a comfortable living selling bicycle parts were publicly executed by firing squad in October 2024 in front of hundreds of forced spectators, including nearby market workers. Their crime was essentially running a successful private business, which the state views as a threat to its economic control. They didn't steal. They didn't hurt anyone. They sold bicycle parts and made money, and the government executed them publicly for it. Entrepreneurship has never been this risky anywhere on Earth. Number 55. North Korean soldiers fighting in the Ukraine war and overseas IT workers dispatched by the government are subject to on-the-spot summary execution. No trial, no court, is risky anywhere on Earth. Number 55. North Korean soldiers fighting in the Ukraine war and overseas IT workers dispatched by the government are subject to on-the-spot summary execution. No trial, no court, no process if they attempt to escape or violate orders. That's not even a law passed for citizens at home. It's a standing kill order for North Koreans working abroad. So you're sent overseas supposedly as a worker or a soldier, and if you try to leave, your own government can have you shot on the spot in a foreign country. Working abroad has never been this non-optional. Number 56. In North Korea, students are required to participate in mass performance events like the Arirang Festival, where around 50,000 children simultaneously flip colored cards to create massive human mosaics for political ceremonies. They rehearse for 6 to 12 months, practicing for hours under the scorching sun with no breaks, and casualties from heat and exhaustion are considered inevitable. The world watches the performance on state media and calls it spectacular. The children creating it call it something else entirely.
God,
You just can't
fucking
say it
damn
out
it.
loud. Number 57. Every week inside North Korean schools, students are required to attend a session called Sayang Wal Chong Hwa, a life review meeting where classmates publicly accuse each other of showing capitalist or anti-state behavior. Children report on children. Students are encouraged to criticize their peers, their teachers, even family members if they suspect any disloyalty. So every week, North Korean kids sit in a circle and snitch on each other as part of the official school curriculum. Loyalty to the state, starting from age 7. Number 58. North Korean factories and state-run companies are ordered every year to raise rabbits, pigs, and goats on site to contribute to national meat production. Even when those companies have nothing to do with farming, zero expertise in livestock, and no space for animals. Workers are required to donate money to build rabbit hutches and pig pens at their own workplaces. Managers who object face punishment. So the country's fisheries offices, government bureaus, and industrial factories are all out here building rabbit barns and wondering where it all went wrong. Number 59. North Korea's official labor law boldly states that every worker is entitled to 8 hours of work, 8 hours of study, and 8 hours of rest per day. Sounds almost reasonable until you realize that the study part means mandatory ideological sessions studying Kim Jong-un's teachings, which are compulsory, monitored, and reported on. There is no minimum wage. There are no labor protections that are actually enforced. The law promises rest. Reality delivers another 3 hours of mandatory loyalty education instead. Number 60. A former North Korean cabinet official in charge of inter-Korean talks was reportedly executed by firing squad in 2010. Not for spying, not for defection, but for a policy failure during negotiations with South Korea. He didn't succeed at his job and paid with his life. In North Korea, a bad performance review doesn't get you a warning email or a demotion. It gets you shot. This is genuinely the world's most aggressive performance management system, and absolutely nobody is asking for it to go global. Number 61. A 22-year-old man in South Hwanghae province was publicly executed in 2022 for listening to 70 South Korean songs, watching 3 South Korean movies, and sharing them with just 7 people. Confirmed by South Korea's Ministry of Unification in their 2024 Human Rights Report. 70 songs, 3 movies, 7 friends, executed. Meanwhile, the rest of the world shared entire Netflix passwords with 40 people and called it a Wednesday night. North Korea really said streaming has consequences. Number 62, in 2024, two 16-year-old boys were publicly sentenced to 12 years of hard labor in front of hundreds of fellow students gathered in a stadium for watching South Korean dramas. The whole event was filmed. The boys were handcuffed and in gray jumpsuits, and officers lectured them about not reflecting deeply enough on their mistakes. 12 years of hard labor for a TV show. At 16, the stadium full of students watching wasn't a warning. It was the entire point. Number 63, wearing a white wedding dress as a bride is now illegal in North Korea under the 2020 anti-reactionary ideology law. White wedding dresses are considered too Western, too foreign, and therefore a threat to the state. So brides must wear traditional Korean hanbok attire only. And if a groom carries his bride on his back, also a Western-influenced gesture, that too is a punishable violation. Even your wedding day has to be government-approved, government-styled, and government-appropriate. Romance. But make it state-regulated. Number 64, North Korean citizens working abroad. In Russia, China, construction sites, factories routinely have their passports physically confiscated by DPRK government officials the moment they arrive. No passport, no ability to leave, no ability to seek help. They work, send most of their wages directly to the North Korean government, and live under constant surveillance by minders. They're technically employed overseas. In reality, they're trapped in another country, working for a government that holds their only document proving they exist. Number 65. Leaving work without permission, even for one day, can get you sentenced to months of hard labor in North Korea. The 2022 KMU White Paper documented a defector who was sentenced to 6 months of re-education labor simply for being absent from work without notice. Not quitting, not causing trouble, not stealing, just not showing up one day without telling anyone. 6 months of forced construction or logging work for a single unannounced absence. Human resources in North Korea is on a completely different level. Number 66. North Korea's phone inspection regime is absolutely relentless. Government officials can stop any citizen at any time and demand to go through their entire mobile phone, every contact, every message, every app. They specifically look for South Korean slang, South Korean-style expressions, or any foreign language patterns in text messages. Simply texting in a style that sounds too South Korean can get you arrested. So North Koreans are being policed not just for what they watch or listen to, but for the exact words they type to their friends. Number 67. In North Korea, living together are words they another country by construction. Number 64. North Korean citizens working abroad. In Russia, China, construction sites, factories routinely have their passports physically confiscated by DPRK government officials the moment they arrive. No passport, no ability to leave, no ability to seek help. They work, send most of their wages directly to the North Korean government, and live under constant surveillance by minders. They're technically employed overseas. In reality, they're trapped in another country, working for a government that holds their only document proving they exist. Number 65. Leaving work without permission, even for one day, can get you sentenced to months of hard labor in North Korea. The 2022 KMU White Paper documented a defector who was sentenced to 6 months of re-education labor simply for being absent from work without notice. Not quitting, not causing trouble, not stealing, just not showing up one day without telling anyone. 6 months of forced construction or logging work for a single unannounced absence. Human resources in North Korea is on a completely different level. Number 66. North Korea's phone inspection regime is absolutely relentless. Government officials can stop any citizen at any time and demand to go through their entire mobile phone, every contact, every message, every app. They specifically look for South Korean slang, South Korean-style expressions, or any foreign language patterns in text messages. Simply texting in a style that sounds too South Korean can get you arrested. So North Koreans are being policed not just for what they watch or listen to, but for the exact words they type to their friends. Number 67. In North Korea, living together as a couple without being officially married is a punishable criminal offense. In 2023, Radio Free Asia confirmed multiple cases of citizens being arrested and sent to labor camps specifically for cohabiting without marriage. Not causing disturbance, not breaking any other rule, just sharing a home without the correct paperwork. The government decides when you can move in together, who you can live with, and what happens if you get that order wrong. Even love is subject to state approval and scheduling. Number 68. In 2020, Kim Jong-un ordered pet dogs in Pyongyang to be confiscated from their owners. The official reason was that keeping pets was a symbol of Western decadence. But the timing coincided with severe food shortages, and multiple reports confirmed the confiscated dogs were sent to restaurants and state-run facilities to be used as meat. Owning a pet had quietly become a small luxury among Pyongyang's elite, and the government decided that was unacceptable. So citizens who had raised and loved their dogs had them taken away, with no say and no compensation. North Korea looked at the family pet and saw a political problem and a meal. Number 69, North Korea's 2020 Reactionary Ideology and Culture Rejection Act allows capital punishment for anyone who imports or distributes foreign media content. Not just South Korean content. Any foreign books, films, music, or cultural materials. The law specifically targets youth and has a whole separate enforcement branch dedicated to inspecting young people's phones, clothing, hairstyles, and speech patterns. So the government built an entire legal apparatus just to make sure nobody under 30 has any fun, any style, or any knowledge of the outside world. Thorough. Number 70. Defectors from North Korea who successfully escaped to South Korea are not automatically safe. North Korea has sent agents to South Korea specifically to pressure, threaten, and coerce defectors into returning. One confirmed case involved a woman named Song who operated in South Korea for 3 years, intimidating defectors on behalf of the regime's political agenda before being caught and sentenced to prison by a South Korean court. So you risk your life escaping, make it to freedom, and the regime sends someone to follow you there. The country that never lets returning to South Korea specifically to pressure, threaten, and coerce defectors into returning. One confirmed case involved a woman named Song who operated in South Korea for 3 years. Intimidating confirmed case involved a woman named Song who operated in South Korea for 3 years. Intimidating defectors on behalf of the regime's political agenda before being caught and sentenced to prison by a South Korean court. So you risk your life escaping, make it to freedom, and the regime sends someone to follow you there. The country that never lets go. Number 71. Prisoners in North Korean labor camps are forced to work up to 16 hours per day in construction, agriculture, logging, and mining, in extreme heat and extreme cold with no protective gear. Workers who fail to meet their daily quotas are beaten and have their food rations reduced, which, according to the International Bar Association's 2022 War Crimes Report, frequently led to death from overwork and starvation combined. The camp doesn't punish you for failing, it just makes survival itself the punishment. Number 72 movement, so North Korea's constitution actually guarantees freedom of religion on paper. There are even a handful of state-sanctioned churches in Pyongyang, but defectors and foreign researchers widely describe them as pure performance, maintained specifically to show visiting foreigners. In reality, practicing any religion privately is illegal and can result in execution. The U.S. State Department confirmed execution specifically for Bible possession. The churches exist. The freedom does not. North Korea built a set piece and called it a human right. Number 73.
Goddamn Christ.
Citizens in North Korea who attempt to cross the border into China without permission face up to 5 years of hard labor upon being caught and sent back, confirmed by the 2022 Kinnu White Paper. And China, which is supposed to be North Korea's closest ally, actively catches and returns these escapees, classifying them as economic migrants rather than refugees, in direct violation of international law. So you escape one authoritarian country, and its authoritarian neighbor hands you straight back. 2 countries, one terrible outcome. Number 74, during the devastating North Korean famine of the 1990s, which killed hundreds of thousands of people, food distribution was deliberately prioritized for citizens deemed politically loyal under the Songbun system, while those classified as hostile received drastically less or nothing at all. Starvation in North Korea was never just a natural disaster. It was also a political tool. Your family's loyalty score from 3 generations ago could literally determine whether you ate or starved. The government didn't just fail to feed its people. It chose who deserved to live. Number 75. North Korea requires all overseas workers dispatched to foreign countries to have no freedom of association, no collective bargaining rights, and no ability to strike, confirmed by multiple international reports. Their wages are largely funneled directly to the North Korean government, with workers receiving
I
only
just
a
shit my
fraction.
pants.
The UN has repeatedly condemned this as forced labor. So North Korea exports its citizens like a product, collects their earnings like rent, and calls it international cooperation. The workers call it something else. They just can't say it out loud. Number 76, fortune-telling is a literal criminal offense in North Korea, written clearly into Article 291 of their criminal law. Get caught visiting a fortune-teller and you go to a labor discipline camp. Do it repeatedly and you get up to 10 years of hard labor. Now here's the funny part. Daily NK confirmed that despite all these crackdowns, fortune-telling is actually growing underground across North Korea. People are so desperate for hope in that country that they'd rather risk prison than not know what the stars say. Honestly, fair enough. Number 77, an American student named Otto Warmbier visited North Korea in 2015 on a guided tour and made the mistake of taking a propaganda poster from his hotel wall as a souvenir. That's it, a poster. He was arrested at the airport while trying to leave, sentenced to 15 years of hard labor, and released 17 months later in a coma. He never recovered and died shortly after returning home. A 22-year-old lost his life for a hotel wall decoration. North Korea genuinely cannot take a joke, a poster, or anything at all. Number 78. Driving in North Korea comes with a very specific rule. You cannot drive alone. Every driver must always carry passengers in the vehicle unless they hold a special military mobilization permit. On top of that, drivers need a fuel validity document, a certificate of driver training, and proof the vehicle is mechanically sound just to operate a car. So in a country where barely anyone owns a vehicle, the few people who do own one need approximately 4 government documents just to go somewhere without a passenger. Freedom on the open road, heavily regulated edition. Number 79. North Korea has banned the actual words hamburger, ice cream, and karaoke from everyday conversation and replaced them with clunky government-approved alternatives. Hamburger must now be called double bread with ground beef. Ice cream was replaced with Eskimo. And karaoke simply doesn't have an acceptable substitute, it's just gone. The regime views foreign loanwords as a form of cultural invasion, so citizens must rewire the way they speak about the most ordinary things on Earth. Imagine getting in trouble for saying ice cream out loud. North Korea declared war on vocabulary and somehow made ordering dessert a political act. Number 80, shiny dresses are banned in North Korea. Not revealing dresses, not imported fashion. Just anything with a noticeable shimmer or gloss to it. Because shiny fabric is considered too Western and too individualistic. Hot dogs are also banned for being too American, and popular South Korean foods like takoyaki and budae-jjigae are banned for being too South Korean. So North Koreans are navigating a food and fashion minefield every single day where looking slightly too sparkly or eating the wrong snack can land you in serious trouble. Impressive range of things to criminalize. Number 81. Traveling between cities inside North Korea requires a government-issued travel permit. You cannot simply book a bus ticket and visit another town. You need official documentation proving you have a valid reason to travel approved by the state. People who move between cities without permits can be arrested at checkpoints and sent back or punished. So in a country with no internet, no free press, no freedom of speech, North Koreans also cannot freely travel inside their own country. The freedom to go literally anywhere is a privilege Kim Jong-un keeps entirely for himself. Number 82. In North Korea, every single piece of land, every house, every shop, and every business legally belongs to the state, not to any individual. Citizens can use property but never own it. Since 2000, people have been quietly trading residency rights using a document called an ipsajung, essentially a loophole where you swap certificates under different names. But to make it work, you have to bribe a city official, reportedly with cigarettes, a bottle of liquor, or around $50 to $100 in cash. North Korea accidentally invented the world's most informal real estate market. Number 83. Detention facilities in North Korea confirmed by Human Rights Watch force prisoners to sit perfectly still on the floor, kneeling or cross-legged, hands on laps, heads down, eyes to the floor for up to 16 hours a day without moving. If you shift position even slightly, guards punish you or impose collective punishment on everyone in the room. Prisoners are also referred to by numbers instead of their names because guards consider them unworthy of direct address. Detainees are treated as something less than human from the moment they arrive, and the law not only allows it, it doesn't even bother to prohibit it. Number 84. In 2024, North Korea officially banned citizens from carrying bags with a shoulder strap on one side of their body because that's how South Koreans carry them. Instead, authorities instructed citizens to use backpacks or hold bags in one hand, which was deemed the proper socialist way. Radio Free Asia confirmed that violators at Hong Medical University had their bags confiscated and students faced expulsion or labor assignments for it. So a college student slung a bag over their shoulder the wrong way and the government saw a national security threat. North Korea has now policed haircuts, pants, dresses, sunglasses, shoes, words, and the exact angle at which you hold a bag. There is genuinely nothing left to regulate except breathing. And honestly, give it time. Number 85. Pornography distribution in North Korea carries the death penalty under the Penal Code, confirmed by the U.S. State Department's Human Rights reports. In one documented case, a man was publicly executed by firing squad for distributing pornographic videos, with an audience of 200 people forced to watch. In many countries, content moderation means flagging a post or issuing a copyright strike. In North Korea, content moderation is a public execution in front of 200 people on a Tuesday afternoon. The punishment to crime ratio here is completely unhinged by any standard of logic. Number 86. In 2024, North Korea banned karaoke restaurants entirely, shut them all down permanently, and told the owners they could never operate any restaurant again. The reason? A handful of workers who had been assigned to a government construction project skipped their labor shift to go eat and sing at a karaoke restaurant instead. So because a few people ditched work to sing some songs, every karaoke restaurant in the entire country was closed forever. The machines only played North Korean songs, not a single foreign track, and they still got banned. Citizens protested, asking how singing their own patriotic songs could be anti-socialist. The government didn't answer. North Korea really said, if anyone has fun, nobody gets to have fun. The most aggressive overreaction to a sick day in human history. Number 87, Red Velvet, the wildly popular South Korean girl group, actually performed live in Pyongyang in 2018, right in front of hundreds of North Korean citizens and Kim Jong-un himself, who reportedly clapped along and said he was deeply moved by the performance. 3 years later, North Korea made it a capital offense to distribute or watch exactly that kind of content. So Kim Jong-un literally applauded K-pop in person and then started executing people for listening to it. The man contains multitudes, none of them consistent. Number 88. North Korean drivers have another bizarre rule on top consistent. Number 88. Do it. The man contains multitudes, none of them consistent. Executing people for listening to it. The man contains multitudes, none of them consistent. Number 88. North Korean drivers have another bizarre rule on top of everything else. Traffic lights in central Pyongyang are operated not by automated systems but by actual human traffic officers, mostly young women selected specifically for their appearance and precision of movement. These women stand at intersections performing elaborately choreographed gestures to direct traffic. They became so iconic that tourists specifically requested to photograph them, and the government turned them into a tourism attraction. North Korea accidentally invented the world's most overqualified and aesthetically regulated traffic control system. Number 89. In North Korea, any criticism of the government, even a single casual comment made privately to someone you trust, is classified as a political crime punishable by imprisonment or worse. The UN Secretary General's 2022 report confirmed a defector's testimony that you could say the country was struggling. But the moment you mention Kim Jong-un's name critically, even to a close friend, you could disappear. So North Koreans have spent decades developing the remarkable skill of expressing absolutely nothing about anything that matters to absolutely anyone. An entire country of very careful conversationalists. Number 90. Superstitious practices like leaving food offerings, burning incense, or performing any kind of ritual protection ceremony are criminalized under Article 291 of North Korea's Criminal Code, punishable by labor camps. And yet, Daily NK confirmed in early 2025 that these practices have never stopped. They've just moved deeper underground, with people leaving coins and food at intersections in the middle of the night. Security officials walk past abandoned food on the street and nobody touches it, even while starving. Because picking up ritual money is believed to transfer the bad luck to you. The government banned superstition and accidentally made it more powerful. Number 91. When COVID hit in 2020, Kim Jong-un issued a shoot-on-sight order for anyone found near the northern border without authorization. Not arrest them, not question them, shoot on sight. So during a global pandemic, while every other country was telling people to stay home and wash their hands, North Korea was posting armed guards with orders to kill anyone who walked too close to a fence. Pandemic prevention Kim Jong-un style. Number 92. North Korea rejected millions of free COVID vaccine doses offered through the WHO's SOVAX program in 2021. Russia offered vaccines twice, also rejected. South Korea offered, rejected. So while the rest of the world was desperately trying to vaccinate its populations, Kim Jong-un turned down free vaccines multiple times and told citizens to fight the pandemic in our style. Then, in August 2022, he declared North Korea had officially beaten COVID without a single vaccine. He called it the greatest miracle in global health. Nobody fact-checked him because nobody was allowed to.
Damn it.
Number 93. 8 employees of a Pyongyang company were arrested in July 2024 for gathering after work to watch forbidden foreign videos and read banned books inside their own office. But here's the part that makes it truly North Korean. Not only were the employees arrested, their parents and siblings were taken away too in early August. 8 office workers watched some videos after hours, and suddenly multiple entire families disappeared. North Korea really looked at an after-work movie night and said, this requires a family-wide operation. Number 94. In North Korea, people with physical disabilities are systematically prevented from living in Pyongyang. The capital is reserved for citizens who present the right image of the state, and disabled people don't fit that image. Defectors and human rights organizations have confirmed that disabled individuals are routinely removed from Pyongyang and relocated to rural areas away from public visibility and foreign visitors. The government built an entire showcase city and quietly made sure certain citizens would never be seen in it. A capital city that erases people for existing differently. Number 95. During COVID lockdowns in North Korea, a small number of people who managed to enter through border cities were placed in government quarantine facilities with electricity outages, barely any food, and no medical treatment for up to 50 days straight. Human Rights Watch documented this in their 2024 report. So you made it into the country, followed the rules, went to the official quarantine facility, and got locked in a dark room with a bowl of rice for 7 weeks. North Korea managed to make even following the rules feel like a punishment. Number 96. North Korea's fishermen were banned from going out to sea during COVID. Not for weeks, but for years. One defector told Human Rights Watch that by mid-2020, people in his area had started selling their televisions and household belongings at half price just to buy food. Because the fishing ban had completely cut off their only source of income and trade. A fisherman banned from fishing, selling his TV to eat while the government announced there were 0 COVID cases and everything was fine. The gap between the official story and actual life in North Korea is simply breathtaking. Number 97. In North Korea, women are specifically targeted and punished for smoking in public, while men face virtually no consequences for the same behavior. The 2020 public smoking ban technically applies to everyone, but Radio Free Asia confirmed that enforcement falls almost entirely on women. Female smokers caught in restaurants get fined, with the fine increasing each time, while men smoke openly on the same streets without a second glance from authorities. And here's the best part. Kim Jong-un himself regularly appears on state television smoking cigarettes in public. So the Supreme Leader
God
smokes
fucking
freely on
damn it.
camera.
Oh, fucking
Men
Christ.
smoke freely on the street, and women get fined for doing exactly the same
Fucking
thing.
goddamn Christ.
Equality, North Korea style. Number 98. North Korea's government intensified ideological campaigns during COVID, specifically because they were worried citizens suffering from lockdowns and food shortages might start questioning the regime.
The
The government's own internal analysis showed they feared unrest, so they responded by ramping up propaganda, increasing surveillance, and passing new laws restricting speech and media. The citizens were starving, and the government's response was more loudspeakers, more loyalty classes, and more informants. A masterclass in solving the wrong problem entirely. Number 99. North Korea's political prison camp Yodok was so brutally underfed that prisoners survived by secretly catching and eating rats, snakes, frogs, salamanders, worms, and insects raw, because guards would beat them if they were caught. The daily food ration was just a small bowl of corn gruel, 3 times a day. Miss your word quota, and even that got taken away. Amnesty International, Wikipedia, and multiple defector testimonies all confirm this. One of the most thoroughly documented hunger crimes in modern history, happening inside a single camp. Number 100. North Korea is technically one of the most sanctioned countries on Earth, with the UN, US, EU, and dozens of nations imposing economic restrictions for its nuclear weapons program. And yet, Kim Jong-un's response has been to build more missiles, send soldiers to fight in Ukraine, dispatch IT workers to hack foreign companies for cash, and keep the whole machine running while ordinary citizens starve, get executed for watching television, and go to prison for wearing jeans. The world keeps sanctioning. Kim Jong-un keeps going, and 26 million people keep waking up every day in the most controlled, most surveilled, most absurd country on the planet, with absolutely no say in any of it.
That's everything for today. If there's a topic you're curious about, drop it in the comments below. And remember to hit some...
There is a single sentence that was spoken by Jesus in Judea, by the Buddha in northern India, and by Lao Tzu in ancient China. 3 different men living on 3 different continents, separated by centuries, with absolutely zero documented contact between them, arrived at the exact same realization. But if you grew up inside a traditional church, you were never taught this sentence. In fact, you were taught the exact opposite. Because the moment you understand what these 3 men actually said, the entire institutional power of modern religion collapses. And the men who built those institutions knew it. A recent survey conducted by the Pew Research Center in 2023 found that 28% of American adults now consider themselves spiritual but not religious. That is a massive shift. But when you look at the younger demographics, the numbers get even more extreme. Among those under the age of 30, that number jumps to 42%. People are abandoning the pews at the fastest rate in recorded history. And the problem does not stop there. If you look at the data coming out of Europe, the situation is even more drastic. Across the entire Western world, institutional religion is facing a demographic collapse that sociologists predict could render traditional church attendance statistically insignificant by the year 2070. But this is exactly where your life enters the story. You might be one of those people. You might have walked away from the church you grew up in, not because you stopped believing in a spiritual reality, but because the institution itself felt deeply wrong. You felt a fundamental disconnect between the rigid hierarchy you were seeing and the actual teachings you were reading. You felt like you were being managed rather than awakened. And you were absolutely right. In today's video, I am going to show you exactly what happens when you place the primary teachings of Jesus, the Buddha, and Lao Tzu side by side. I am going to show you the identical universal core that they all taught, the exact historical moment the church decided to suppress it, and the mechanism they used to turn a message of inner liberation into a system of external control. And before we finish, I will show you how reading these texts can completely transform your understanding of your own spiritual life. Before we begin, please leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. This is highly important for the YouTube algorithm to understand that this content has value for you. And it tells YouTube that you want to see more investigative historical research just like this. The institution did not preserve the original message. The institution was built to contain it. It was a Tuesday evening in November of 1994. I was sitting in my office at the theology department in Durham. The rain was hitting the window and the campus was completely quiet. I was preparing a lecture on comparative religion for my second-year students. As a devout Anglican lecturer, my entire career and my entire worldview was built on a very specific premise, that the Christian revelation was utterly unique, that it offered something fundamentally different from the Eastern traditions.
I sold my soul to start winning some
I had 3
games.
books open on my desk. On my left, the Greek New Testament, open to the Gospel of Luke. In the center, a fresh translation of the Dhammapada, the primary text of early Buddhism, and on my right, the Chinese Tao Te Ching. I was looking for points of contrast. I was looking for evidence to prove to my students that our institutional truth was the only complete truth. But then, I started reading the actual verses side by side. Not the commentaries, not the church fathers, not the theologians. I was looking at the primary texts themselves, and within about 45 minutes, the entire foundation of my faith cracked. It did not just crack, it shattered. Because I realized, sitting alone in that cold office, that the institution I had served my entire life had not just misunderstood the message. They had actively, deliberately inverted it. Let me show you exactly what I saw on that desk. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 17, verse 21, Jesus is asked by the Pharisees when the kingdom of God will come. He answers, "The kingdom of God does not come with observation, nor will they say, 'See here,' or 'See there.' For indeed, the kingdom of God not just misunderstood the message. They had actively, deliberately inverted it. Let me show you exactly what I saw on that desk. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 17, verse 21, Jesus is asked by the Pharisees when the kingdom of God will come. He answers, "The kingdom of God does not." Chapter 17, verse 21. Jesus is asked in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 17, verse 21. Jesus is asked by the Pharisees when the kingdom of God will come. He answers, "The kingdom of God does not come with observation, nor will they say, 'See here,' or 'See there.' For indeed, the kingdom of God is within you." The Greek word used there is entos, which means inside or within. And in the Gospel of Thomas, which was discovered much later, Logan 3 records Jesus saying, "The kingdom is inside you, and it is outside you. When you know yourself, you will be known." Now, look at the Dhammapada, composed in northern India around the 5th century before Christ. Verse 160 says, "You yourself are your own master." And the very first verse of the entire text establishes the foundation. Mind is the forerunner of all actions. True liberation, nirvana, is not a place you go after you die. It is the complete mastery and awakening of the mind in the present moment. 60 says, "You yourself are your own master." And the very first verse of the entire text establishes the foundation. Mind is the forerunner of all actions. True liberation, nirvana, is not a place you go after you die. It is the complete mastery and awakening of the mind in the present moment. And then, look at the Tao Te Ching, written by Lao Tzu in China around the 6th century before Christ. Chapter 16 explicitly says, "Return to the root. This is called stillness." The Tao is not a deity in the sky managing human affairs. It is the fundamental reality of the universe that you access by stripping away the ego and returning to your own inner root. 3 different civilizations, 3 different continents, hundreds of years apart, 0 documented contact between them. And yet, the core structural claim is identical. The ultimate reality is not found by submitting to an external authority, performing external rituals, or pleasing a man in the sky. It is found through a profound interior shift. The kingdom is within. You are your own master. Return to the root. This concept functions exactly like a master key. Imagine you have 3 distinct houses built on 3 different continents in 3 completely different architectural styles. The houses look nothing alike from the outside. One has stained glass windows and stone pillars. Another has a curved pagoda roof made of wood. The third is carved directly into the side of a mountain. If you only look at the exterior, you would say these structures have absolutely nothing in common. But if you walk up to the front doors, you realize the locks on all 3 doors are identical. The mechanism required to get inside is the exact same master key. The exterior of the house is the cosmology, the cultural packaging, the theology. But the key to actually enter the mechanism of spiritual liberation is identical. It is an interior shift. It is the dissolution of the ego. Now, Richard Hooper, in his 2012 academic compilation titled Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, and Lao Tzu, documented hundreds of these thematic parallels. He drew from over 50 primary texts across these traditions. He proved that this convergence is not just a handful of isolated quotes. It is a massive, undeniable structural reality. 3 distinct civilizations arrived at structurally identical answers regarding inner transformation over external ritual and compassion over the law. To understand where this exclusive claim came from, we need to go back in time. Not just a few decades, but over 1,600 years. Let us go. Look at the basic arithmetic of salvation that the traditional church taught you. You have one immortal soul. There are roughly 4,300 different religions active in the world today. But according to the Orthodox narrative, only one specific institution with one specific set of rituals, administered by one specific hierarchy of men, can guarantee your safety after you die. The mathematics do not add up. If you were born in the wrong geography or the wrong century, the system condemns you by default. The odds are astronomically against you unless the entire system was rigged from the start. And it was rigged. Between the 2nd and 4th centuries, the early Orthodox Church made a series of deliberate, calculated decisions. As documented extensively by scholars like Elaine Pagels in her 1979 work, The Gnostic Gospels, the early Church Fathers actively suppressed documented extensively by scholars like Elaine Pagels in her 1979 work, The Gnostic Gospels. The early Church Fathers actively suppressed texts that pointed to inner spiritual authority. Texts like the Gospel of Thomas were banned, hunted down, and burned. Why? Because an inner kingdom is an absolute nightmare for an institution that wants to build an empire. If the kingdom of God is within you, then you do not need a priest to mediate your relationship with the divine. You do not need to pay tithes to guarantee your salvation. You do not need to submit to a bishop's political authority. Institutional religion functions exactly like a software monopoly. Imagine a piece of brilliant open-source software that was given to humanity for free. Anyone could use it. Anyone could access the code, and it worked perfectly to heal your computer. But then, a massive corporation came along, copied the code, put a new complicated interface on it, locked the source code away, and started charging a mandatory monthly subscription fee. If anyone tried to share the original free version, the corporation sued them and destroyed their reputation. The early church took an open-source spiritual reality, the kingdom within, and put a massive paywall around it. That paywall was called dogma. And the subscription fee they demanded was your absolute unquestioning obedience. If the kingdom is inside you, the church cannot charge a toll for entry. They cannot control the borders of the kingdom you already possess. So they bury the map. But this is not just a story about ancient history. There is a mechanism that explains exactly how they pulled this off. And it is a mechanism that still operates in life today. But before I show you how it works, you need to understand what happened in the 17th century. In the year 1670, a philosopher named Baruch Spinoza published a book that shook the foundations of European religion. It was called the Tractatus Theologico-Politicus. Spinoza was arguably the most brilliant rationalist of his era, and he was excommunicated for his radical views. In chapter 14 of the Tractatus, Spinoza laid out what he called the dogmas of the universal faith. He argued with devastating precision that true religion is universal, natural, and entirely interior. It cannot be overridden or controlled by any external ecclesiastical authority. Spinoza demonstrated that the one practical requirement that survives across all genuine religious traditions is justice and love of the neighbor. That is it. Everything else, the debates over miracles, the precise nature of prophecy, the elaborate rituals, the infallibility of Scripture, all of these doctrinal differences are secondary constructions. They are layers added on top by institutions for one specific purpose, to secure obedience from the masses. Spinoza's explicit goal in writing the Tractatus was to liberate the individual from bondage to superstition and ecclesiastical authority. He saw clearly that churches fight violent, bloody wars over doctrine, but he proved that the doctrine is just the wrapper. It is not the content. The hierarchy itself is the institutional mechanism of control. Spinoza proved in 1670 that the doctrine is just the wrapper. But there is something here that seems to make no sense. If this was exposed over 300 years ago, why is the conventional narrative still dominating our culture? The answer lies in a paradox that few people understand, and it is exactly where the story gets really dark. The paradox is this. The more a religious institution claims to possess a message of universal love, the more violently it enforces its exclusive boundaries. You might think that if the core message is love and inner peace, the institution would naturally be open, tolerant, and inclusive. But in reality, it is the exact opposite. Because the institution is not designed to spread love, it is designed to preserve its own authority. If they admit that the Buddhist meditating in Kyoto or the Taoist in the mountains of China has found the exact same truth as the Christian in Rome, then Rome loses its monopoly, and when a monopoly is threatened, it becomes ruthless.
God damn it.
This is why, throughout history, the most brutal suppressions have not been against atheists. They have been against the mystics within their own ranks. In 1945, the British intellectual Aldous Huxley published a monumental work called The Perennial Philosophy. Huxley provided the first systematic Western academic analysis of the shared mystical core underlying all major religions. He documented that Jesus, the Buddha, and Lao Tzu all pointed to the same divine reality, access through the dissolution of the ego rather than through institutional rites. But Huxley also pointed out something crucial. He showed that this core truth only survived precisely in the mystical strands of each tradition that the institutional religion tried hardest to suppress. It survived in Christian mysticism like Meister Eckhart, who was investigated for heresy. It survived in Sufi Islam, whose practitioners were often persecuted by Orthodox authorities. It survived in Zen Buddhism. The institution always tries to kill the mystic, because the mystic proves that the institution is unnecessary. Even more recently, in 1995, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh published Living Buddha, Living Christ. Here is a scholar and a practitioner who spent decades deeply studying both traditions. He argues compellingly that the Christian kingdom of God and Buddhist nirvana are not future rewards waiting for you after death. They are present realities. They are accessed through the exact same interior shift, the dogmatic boundaries that separate these traditions. The walls that tell you that you cannot cross from one to the other are entirely institutional additions. They have absolutely nothing to do with what Jesus or the Buddha or Lao Tzu actually said. And this is where the history stops being a story about institutions and starts being a story about you, about your mind, your relationships, and your future. Because the effects of this massive historical theft are happening right now in your own life. When you were taught that salvation, or peace, or connection to the divine could only be found by adhering strictly to the rules of one specific church, your spiritual development was hijacked. You were taught to look outwards. You were taught to look up at a pulpit, to look at a priest, to look at a list of rules. You were explicitly trained not to look within. And so, you spend your life feeling a profound sense of spiritual anxiety. You feel like you are never doing enough, never believing hard enough, never quite measuring up to the doctrinal standards. That anxiety is not a bug in the system. It is the core feature. The anxiety is what keeps you paying the subscription fee. Now, you might be thinking exactly what the skeptics always say. You might say, wait a minute. Buddhism is strictly non-theistic. It has no creator God. Christianity revolves entirely around the Father God. These are completely different cosmologies. You cannot possibly claim they teach the same message. And here I ask you, does the exterior of the house change the shape of the key? The convergence does not lie in the cosmology. It does not lie in how they describe the origins of the universe. It lies in the mechanism of spiritual liberation. All three figures pointed aggressively away from external institutional authority and toward an interior transformation. Jesus called it the kingdom within. The Buddha called it the mastery of mind over external conditions. Lao Tzu called it returning to the root. Three different cosmological wrappers, one identical structural claim. Or you might say, but Jesus explicitly said in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. That is the absolute opposite of universalism. And you would be right to point that out if you read it exactly the way the institution trained you to read it. But you have to look at the context. In John's Gospel, the way connects directly to the concept of the Logos in chapter 1, which John identifies as the universal creative principle present before creation. Early Christian mystical traditions like the Desert Fathers consistently read the way as the interior path to divine reality, not as a membership card to a single Roman institution. The exact same verse that reads as an exclusivist threat in one interpretive tradition reads as a profound description of inner transformation in another. And as Spinoza argued in the Tractatus, the institutional readings always layer exclusivism onto a universal core to maintain their grip on power. And if you think the similarities are just cherry-picked coincidences because these men never met,